Good evening and welcome to Perspective. Most of us would agree that we live in a society dominated by men, in a patriarchal society. Most of us would also agree that women are largely a marginalized gender living under the dominion of men. What kind of attitudes do women face both in and out of their homes? What kind of social attitudes do they have to deal with day in and day out? Let's talk about that and more with our guests today. I have with me Justice Retired Jameela Jehanoor Aslam. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And Khalique Saab, who is a social activist. Thank you for your time. Let's talk about why do we live in a society that so much so discriminates against women? Why do we live in a society that is an atmosphere of discrimination against women?
Who makes the society? We do. I have lived more than 6 decades now. When I was a young girl, I never felt this discrimination. Even in my teens, I didn't feel this discrimination. In my 20s, I didn't feel this discrimination. But as things progressed, that's when their interpretation, and I say uneducated interpretation, was applied to society.
Khalil Saab, even other than that, even educated, enlightened men and women even, and we'll talk about that more also, how women also breed an atmosphere of discrimination against other women. But even them, there is a woman is to be discriminated upon. So therefore, it's not just about the clergy. What do you think about that?
I think I agree with both points, partly. I think that because the narrative in Pakistan is currently and for some years is actually being dictated and defined by the clergy or the so-called clergy, because you need a certain kind of education to become a cleric, and that education includes understanding of philosophy and modern disciplines and knowledge, which I think unfortunately is missing here in Pakistan. The last major clerics we produced, whether you agree with them or not, were all from before partition, before the creation of Pakistan. Otherwise, we haven't really produced any major Islamic scholars either in Pakistan, and that tells upon, it's actually indicative of where the society has gone in all areas.
But like you're saying, like you mentioned education, I mean, we need to educate our whole society then, not only just...
Yes, no, I agree with you. That's why I'm saying that I agree with you as well, because what I see, the problem is not with the clergy alone. The problem is also with your educated, affluent, middle class men in particular, but also women, some women, who provide legitimacy to acts of discrimination, acts of violence against women, and that is a bigger problem. So yes, you're absolutely right. There needs to be a complete transformation in mindsets, and also there is an element of class as well. I mean, if you are a woman from from a privileged background, you are less discriminated upon. So there are degrees of marginalization. And if you are a poor woman, and if you're a poor minority woman, then you will be accordingly discriminated against more and more.
Right.
So
Justice Saiba, how true is the fact that it depends on the kind of class that you come from and the social divide, and that of course has an impact on the discrimination. But other than that, how do we socially reform the entire system of education to maybe inculcate the values in the upcoming generations? How do we do it?
I don't know if it's to do with the curriculum or the education. I think it's to do with the mindset.
So how do we change mindsets?
Mindsets do not change overnight.
But even in the future, if not overnight, then when?
It's to stay on with, like, I feel women are coming out on the streets now. They are screaming, but they're not being heard. And I say, don't give up, persevere. One day you will be heard. We do have various acts like the Harassment of the Workplace Act, Protection Against Harassment of the Workplace Act. Then we have this honor killing thing.
And I want to discuss the legislation with you and your opinion on that in detail. But what I want to focus on right now is how do you change attitudes? Okay, you know, women should come out on the streets, they'll be heard more, but how do you change the attitudes in the upcoming generations? When a boy, for example, grows up, you grow up in the same society where you're told that, you know, a girl has to do this and a boy, you know, the roles that you are dictated upon and are imposed on you. How do you change that?
Reiterating, it's a mindset, and I think the change will start at the mother's knee.
Right.
When she doesn't discriminate between her sons and her daughters,
Right.
and teaches the sons, and the father doesn't discriminate,
Right.
that will be like, okay, my sisters are equal to me, and then
Right.
he treats his wife as an equal, and subsequently his daughters and granddaughters.
Right.
Whatever. So changing a mindset, I personally feel the media can do a lot in this, because the reach is very, very far. It goes on and on, especially PG, because a lot of people in the villages don't have these dishes and whatever they call it. So you have to start with, it's like mass hypnosis, because I think the state the society is in now is a mass hypnosis, and I go back to saying because of the clergy, the interpretation of the law, of Islam, the clergy.
Right.
What I find is they all hide behind Islam, they misinterpret Islam,
Right.
they will, and they are believed.
Right.
Okay? Like you were earlier saying, that if I as an authority say, okay, article so and so, they will not go into it and see for themselves, okay, is this correct? Let me see this ayat, or is there Qudsi hadith? So they make up hadith as they go along. And we are a patriarchal society, there's no doubt about it. Have you noticed? Women, even educated women who are financially independent or well off, even they reach the glass ceiling. Has there ever been a female judge sitting in the Supreme Court? How many generals in the Pakistan Army do you have? 2, and they're doctors. How many, I'm glad to hear that I found out that there are fighter pilots.
But things
they
are
never get to the
changing,
top.
aren't
They
they?
never get to the top. The glass ceiling stops. So the mindset is to be changed. If they realize that women are equal to men, then the first step is to teach them, you are equal.
Right, you teach them you're equal.
Yeah.
Is there a glass ceiling?
Of course,
I
there
mean,
is
we
a
have
glass ceiling.
Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, we have Malala, we have, I mean, other
They're
examples
private
to follow.
entrepreneurs. Excuse me, Malala was, well, the least I say about it, the better. But Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is an entrepreneur. I'm talking about in professions.
Yes, I know, but I'm saying that, you know, when you're talking about
You
breaking
see,
stereotypes.
Well, things are changing.
Right.
Undoubtedly,
Yes,
things are
they are.
changing for better also, and that is why you see a backlash from retrogressive forces.
But like
because
Justice
things
Saib
are
was
changing.
saying that there is a
There
glass
is a glass ceiling, absolutely there is a glass ceiling. But there is a silent revolution happening as well. Because if you look at the number of students, I mean, I keep reiterating this example I give. If you look at the number of students in the 2 largest universities in Pakistan, in Karachi University and Punjab University, Karachi University's student body is 90% women. Students enrolled with the university and its colleges, 90% are women. Likewise, Punjab University has 75% women. So, and you look at all these, medical schools and engineering institutions and law schools, you'll find more and more women coming up. But there is a glass ceiling. And that glass ceiling for women exists across the world. But here, it is more sort of more in the face and more crass in case of Pakistan. So in case of Pakistan or other, developing societies. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done.
Right,
Partly
and
it has
like
to be
you-
legislative.
And like you're saying that, you know, the glass ceiling exists all over the world, that's interesting because an item that recently caught my eye was, you know, the problem that we are facing and that everybody agrees is about regarding to honor killings. But there was an article that said that what about all the women who are murdered and killed by their partners and so on in the West?
Yes, I said.
And the statistics of that is also huge. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but that's not a small number of women also. So it's not really just about Pakistan then. Like you're saying, it's all over the world.
You see, I have a problem here. I don't want to look further afield.
Right.
I want to fix my own home.
Yeah, that's
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Why should I bother with what's happening in the West? A lot of good is happening in the West. Do we compete with that? Do they ever say that? They never come up with that. So let us stay at home and let us fix our own, get our house in order.
And how far do you think we're doing that with the new
I feel yes. Like let me put it, when I joined these courts, there were only, I was the third female lawyer to join these courts, Islamabad courts. And today we have a strength of more than 300, with about 150 to 200 actually practicing hands-on. Now that I see as a very positive step. Yes, there are, as you go to the statistics in universities, there are girls, professionally, yes, they're allowing the daughters to come out, and I think it's also got to do with economics. Because of double-digit inflation, one member cannot support the whole family. So they're compelled, the ones whose daughters are educated or they're living in the urban areas, to go out and work and be an extra pair of sort of earning hands.
But it's interesting that we're talking...
But having said that, a lot of girls who acquire the education in universities are married off.
Right. That's what I was coming to, and this is what Haris Saab also mentioned, that there are a lot of students, and yes, a lot of them end up doing law, but and this is just not limited to class, because the top class, you get into law school, your parents are overjoyed, and you do law, and then you go abroad and you study and you come back, and very, very enlightened, educated parents then say, well, you've done the education, you have the barrister behind your name, or you have, and now you don't go and practice law because we don't like the way it is, we don't like the kind of environment that our legal system, our courts have, especially the lower courts. This is a criticism. I'm not saying that, but lots of people say that.
Misconception.
But
it's a misconception.
I don't call those parents enlightened. I call them rich. I mean, if you can afford, if you can buy your daughter good education in order to get her married to somebody rich like yourself or a notch above you, that's not being enlightened. Enlightenment is something very different. It has nothing to do with how much wealth you possess. But still, I would say that things are changing for better. We have to...
That's right. You're right.
You hosting a program here, MAHRUKH, and on this subject was not possible in Pakistan 20 years ago.
True.
You see, and the kind of outrage and disgust people have expressed over the murder of Qandil Baloch also has to be noted and reported. And people who have actually come in favor of a brother, for this grotesque, horrible, cruel act, they are challenged by a large number of people on the other side. So I think, and this conflict, this contradiction in the society is becoming sharper, and the more sharp it becomes, the better results will come out. Because eventually, if you are on the right side of history, if you do not progress, if you do not advance as a society and as people, and that progress and advancement can happen only if women take lead in that progress and advancement.
But one of the things that a society should be able to do, and I'm sure you both will agree with me on that, is that call something right and wrong very clearly. And in this case, in this case, we've had a mixed reaction. We haven't really had one reaction, which should probably have been the right thing to do, right?
No, that you can't say. When there are millions of people, there will be different reactions, different opinions. But I think the people who matter, or rather the enlightened people, have spoken up against this honor killing of so-called, I don't believe it's an honor killing, there's no honor in killing, of Qandil Baloch. But unfortunately they haven't come out. They haven't come out where they have come out for the other rights, like the various acts that have come through.
I mean, we have these vigils and the civil society comes out. We haven't really seen that here.
Yeah,
right?
They're like saying, oh, this such and such act is condemned. So big deal.
Do you think the reaction has been quite enough?
No, I don't.
No, the reaction is not quite enough, but there has been a reaction, and there was no reaction some years ago on these incidents, except for in Sindh. You see, if you look at the Sindhi press, heralded reporting honor crimes, crimes in the name of honor, the dishonorable crimes in the name of honor, as Justice Saiba has very rightly put it. So there was a lot of awakening in Sindh on this issue, because there was a lot of honor killing, the Karokari and things which were happening in Sindh. But then it is so the press has a major role to play there, and I think it has succeeded to a large extent. One, and two, in case of other anti-women practices, there's a lot of consciousness that is being raised in Pakistan, and I think that needs to be appreciated. However, having said that, of course, it's a battle of ideologies, it's a battle of ideas. and you cannot resolve anti-women, the issue of anti-women practices in isolation from your other issues of social justice or social injustice in Pakistan.
Right.
So it's all linked in that sense.
It's all linked, but Justice Saiba, I want to ask you this question that, okay, we have an attitude, and yes, parents who don't let their daughters after an education go into law or other such professions are really not enlightened, like Harith Saab is saying, but there is a very real issue here. Women do face harassment when they go into professions like, for example, law. Isn't that true?
Well, I think you're asking the wrong question. I think I'm a bit of too much of a dragon to be harassed. And neither are my juniors harassed. And at one stage I had 12 girls there. I'm a firm believer it's the attitude or behavior of the woman that determines the reaction from the man. It is you determine how a man behaves towards you. If you cower down to his overtures, he will go the whole hog.
Harith Saab, do you determine the way a man behaves? I want to take your opinion on that as a man and also as a social.
Well, humbly, I would disagree with Justice Saiba here. It's actually, I understand where she's coming from. I mean, women have a responsibility to their own interests, to safeguarding their own interests and their own safety and dignity. But essentially, in a society which is unequal, the blame cannot be shared equally. I mean, women, you're just speaking about the legal profession. Women are harassed, and women are seriously harassed, not just in professions, everywhere in Pakistan. I mean, even wearing a hijab or a burqa does not save them from eve teasing, from harassment, from being chased and followed, and even from being physically assaulted and raped. So I think it is not an equal. I mean, the equation is not equal, and that is why I think men have to be sensitized a lot more. One, and two, it's not just about being. We always speak about these relationships: mother, daughter, wife. It's not just about that.
And all the swear words are also mother, daughter, and wife.
Well, yes, because we come from a patriarchal tradition, of course, and swear words in any language for that matter are like that. But that has to. So men have to be sensitized more. One, towards women per se, not towards their mothers, daughters, and wives, because men, in most of the cases, unless they are sick or with a certain kind of psychological ailment, they do not go. I mean, they would beat up their wives or daughters or even mothers in many cases. But it's not just about that. It's about respecting and understanding for women per se as a human being,
right.
Considering women as equal human beings, considering women as human beings first, and then as equals, because they're not even considered. Women are considered subhumans. Among these sections of society, which unfortunately are large, they are not considered even full human beings. Otherwise, you wouldn't barter them as commodities.
No,
right.
on that, I'll comment that I also will blame the women to a certain extent.
Right, but like you said, if we do start, like you said, it depends on the woman. Then, by that analogy, is it also true that it would depend on what you wear and how you react to a certain thing, and that's what corresponds directly to the harassment you will receive?
If you're a poor woman, whatever you wear and however you conduct yourself, you are at risk. You are vulnerable.
But my objection is.
And if you're a rich woman, whatever you wear, you're safe.
No, you're not. You're not. Anywhere in the world. I mean, if you turn up in a little bar dress at work, you will be harassed even in the West. Okay, so let's face it, harassment is also in the West.
So there are standards.
Yeah, there are standards. We have to go, and let us not denigrate our culture. We have some cultural limitations, even there for the men. What I'm trying to say is here that women are to be blamed because when there's eve teasing or they're facing harassment at the workplace or they're being harassed publicly, there are laws protecting them. They do not invoke those laws.
But they're not always aware also.
How can you not be aware? If a man is hitting on you, won't be aware of it? Or a man is not.
No, I'm saying that they're not aware of the laws in a lot of cases.
In all fairness, whenever any bill for protection of women has come out, the media has played its role, albeit not to the extent I would have liked it to play that role, but they have played the role. Media has played its role. But again, it's the men of the house. If a girl is raped, they will keep it under covers. No, it's a man of honor. We can't reveal that you've been raped. There was a case, I won't take the name on the media, but there was a case and this woman spoke up against it. What about Mukhtar Mai? Okay, we can take her name. She did speak up, and what happened? So let us also see that state is not implementing the laws. I have had cases where I've gone to the court, where the woman has come to me, that, eve teasing thing and all that stuff. I've filed applications, moved applications, but they've not been disposed of. So of course, I keep on pushing till it is, otherwise I'll go to a superior forum and complain that they're not looking into this. Even the women are aware, the men are aware, a certain segment of society, but that awareness will go further. For example, somebody like you would have a maid at home, right? Normally we have maids at home. Now, if that woman comes, she'll come to you and say, Begum Sahaba, this has happened to me. Now, if you as an educated person were aware of the laws, you could advise her, go to a lawyer with this. And she will listen to you because she's coming in having a catharsis with you, or she's unloading on you with the hope that you will find a solution for her. So it is a chain reaction.
Yeah, but in a lot of cases, and Haris Khalique Sahab, what do you think? They do back down themselves. I mean, women will come forward, and then there's so much pressure that they back down themselves.
Under the pressure of the males of the family.
So that's also a fact. And
See,
that's
women,
as you said, sensitization of men. I agree with you.
The question that you have raised, you see, the involvement of women in perpetuating patriarchy, right? I agree to that. I mean, patriarchy works through women as well, but to the benefit of who? For safeguarding whose interests?
The
men's interests.
Right.
So I think we have to understand that. So I think it is very important to appreciate and understand that. That for whose benefit the system works. So the patriarchy works for the benefit of older men. There's a lot of ageism there as well. I mean, younger men do not have that authority or agency to dictate their terms as older men have. So you see in many places in Pakistan, you would find the term elders. So the elders will meet and decide. So the elders will, whether they are tribal elders or even in cities. I mean, I don't particularly blame the tribes for that. I mean, it's just we all are the same. I mean, with some degrees of difference. So the elders decide. And those elders, even if those elders include women who have passed their reproductive age, and I use that term very responsibly, they have to be older women who actually start acting out like men. Yes. Because their role models are those men who are powerful. But those women are used to keep the status quo as it is.
Like you're saying, like in that, like to a normal person, this would mean that, the elder mother or the elder grandmother would probably say that, oh, you have an abusive husband, but it's okay, go back.
Old school of thought. Old school of thought. And she's going to preach what she's learned.
Right. So she's going to say, because she believes that those things are part of the course or the norm, then, that's not a big deal. That's how it should be.
But I think one point that Justice Sahiba has made earlier, and probably off camera we were speaking about it, is or maybe you have said it on camera also, that as the economic compulsions for a household change, things change. So all our grandmothers and great grandmothers always saw men or boys as the earning hands of the family. That is changing. So economic empowerment of women will bring a lot of change in the mindsets over a long period of time. And that has happened across different societies. I mean, and we are not unique in that sense. This will happen here as well. But that struggle has to be carried forward, has to go on.
But it has also very recently happened. Even when you're earning for the entire family, you end up being murdered. So, I mean, that's not something that precludes the violence at all.
It doesn't.
Path of pioneers was never smooth. It's never been smooth throughout history. What women, and I'm proud of Pakistani women, like you're sitting over here, there was a time you'd look for a woman to be on the television screen. And now most of the girls I see, they're intelligent, pretty you are, but intelligent and everything. So yes, women are rising up, okay? And it is now you, as the media, have to portray, I got here, so can you. You are the generation, that we are old school of thought. Okay? You are the generation and you are the pioneers. And yes, women are coming out in the streets in Pakistan. That's why we've had, over the last 10 years, we had a variety of laws legislated in favor of women.
Right, and
now I'm requesting, please push for the implementation.
Right, and we've seen a very good initiative by the government with Maryam Nawaz saying that this law, the honor killings bill, will come into force inshallah very soon. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah.
How do you think that it'll actually be the kind of legislation that will change things?
First of all, let me tell you, we have had a bill since 2002, at the time of General Pervez Musharraf, when he declared that honor killings will be plain and simple culpable homicide, they'll be murder. There is no such thing as, and even the section relating to crimes of passion has been deleted, abrogated. It took, well, it was in 2002. In 2016, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy makes a film, and suddenly there's an airing in the Prime Minister House. And did you see the spate of killings immediately after that? I noticed that. After the airing of the film, after the statements that it is against Islam and everything, there was a spate of honor killings. Where was the state then? Why? What I'm saying, every offense is an offense against the state. And if there's this Qisas and Diyat ordinance where they come and they compromise,
but
the Supreme Court cannot legislate or give a ruling on that or have a judge-made law, because it never gets to the Supreme Court level. It's a district court level, they compound the offense and they go away. So we have to, the bill has already been there. Sohra Imam has moved a bill saying that
but we have seen a recent, the government has really acted out and they have said that, it will take in a few days, they will implement it, and
let's hope so.
Yes, inshallah. But what do you think that it will lead to? Will the loophole that there is as far as Qisas and Diyat is concerned, will they be able to bridge that? Will that be able to?
Look, when a law comes out, it takes a bit of time. Okay?
Right.
It's according to offences that are reported. So we are also waiting, okay, let's show us an offence and we'll take it forward. Yeah, it will take time, but with that amendment, that Qisas and Diyat ordinance will not be applicable to honor killings, being there is a giant step. It strengthens us as lawyers. We can say, right, this is it. I wish it would be with retrospective effect, and then we can pull all of them up. This guy especially.
Right.
And if it won't be with retrospective effect, because I find that laws normally are not, except the NAB ordinance and a few others.
Right,
but we can take it forward, and when you actually see somebody being punished for honor killings, then it gives impetus to the society. Okay, yeah, this has been done, and then others will come out and report it, and the mothers, the complainants or the relatives will realize, okay, we're not getting away with this. So if I'm a complainant, I've got to stay a complainant, otherwise the state is taking over and I've got no choice in it. That, yes.
Right, but Harissa, with the fact that, that so much legislation is now, people know about it, even if it, like Justice Sahiba is saying that it was there before, but there is a huge outcry, and across the board people have said that, there should be, that this loophole should be bridged. The government has come out, they've said that, we'll take steps and implement it, inshallah, in very soon. This will lead to our society being more aware, of course.
Absolutely, and I think law books have to be set right. Like we have been discussing the Qisas and Diyat ordinances of from General Zia-ul-Haq's period. We have also seen the amendment in General Saab's period in the blasphemy law, and we have also seen law of evidence. So all these laws are not necessarily agreed upon by different schools of thought within Islam. So I think there is a lot that needs to be done in sort of amending some of the laws that we have passed in the past, and it happens in every society. Amendments are brought into the constitution. Hundreds of amendments have been made to the constitutions in countries like the US or UK has a different kind of a system. But the conventions keep changing. They run through conventions, and those conventions change according to the needs of the contemporary society. So this is a major step. I think it has to be appreciated. Like the bills in Sindh and Punjab were passed over the past few years in the provincial legislatures also. So I think it is very
violence
important.
against women.
What a hue and cry, especially the one in Punjab.
Right, and the
what
violence against women centers also, particularly.
And also if you look at the, when Maulana Abdul Sattar Edi donated his eyes, and so there was diktats, edicts issued against organ donation, but you see a person being killed, and you do not see similar response to. So acts of kindness, I've said it before, that acts of kindness in Pakistan are actually condemned, and acts of brutality are condoned. and that is something that we need to change. And sensitizing men is a major part of it, but legislative support, state actually siding with the weak and the oppressed is something
a huge
that
step.
that is done through right legislation.
Right. Let's take a short break and we'll come back and talk about how women are marginalized even today. Welcome back from the break. Let's talk about how the fact that the state, is it possible that in crimes like honor killing, how does the state become a party? And recently, will that change things, do you think?
You see, in all criminal offences, the state is a party. The offence is against the state.
Right.
Like obviously killing, it's a violation of the most fundamental right. But what happens is, the FIR is cut by a private individual, right? And you normally know, if you're not in that, but in the criminal case, it's state versus so-and-so. But then again, I'm sounding very trite over here, but then again, they're allowed to compound it. Now what I'm saying, the state must not allow this to be compounded. And when the state will not allow it to be compounded, then we will see positive results.
What do you mean when you say compounded?
Compounded is like the complainant is, okay, let's give you an example. Qandeel Baloch's father is the complainant. He's the one who lodged the FIR against his son. The case will go there, the challan will be, the investigation will be done. It will go to the court. And then the father will come and say, I forgive my son. And that's it. The case is out of because there's nobody pressing charges. And the judge will say, okay, you've compounded the offense, there's nothing I can do.
So when the state becomes a party,
state is naturally a party, but there has to be a complainant in the FIR. Now, if
the state can't be the complainant.
The state is the complainant, yet the FIR is not lodged by the state, if you mean.
Right.
Yeah, there's a blind murder or something like that, yes, that's a na maloom afraad kind of thing. But if there is an actual complainant, like in Qandeel Baloch's case, in most honor killing cases, either a maternal uncle, or the paternal uncle, or the brother, or the mother, or whatever, they come in and they compound the offense. That means they arrive at a compromise.
Right.
And that is because the Qisas and Diyat ordinance allows it to be. Now, the other day I was having an argument with somebody. He said, well, is Qisas and Diyat has to come into this. I said, yes, that's an Islamic law. Is honor killing Islamic? When it's not Islamic, then why do you apply the Islamic law to it? That's where I'm coming from. I say, the Qisas and Diyat ordinance should not be applied to the honor killing. Like, for example, I was telling you earlier, that there are two kinds of laws, the laws that are legislated and judge-made laws. The Honorable Supreme Court has given a ruling that acts of terrorism, no Qisas and Diyat will be allowed. Now that's a judge-made law.
Right,
Okay?
so precedence,
in this,
of course.
the precedence is there. But unfortunately, in the case of honor killing, I call them dishonor killings. Frankly, I like that word you used. Dishonorable killings. It doesn't get to the Supreme Court level because the compoundability thing all happens at the lower district court level.
But the bill will take care of it. The bill, when it becomes law,
I am
will
really
take care
keeping my fingers crossed for this.
Right,
If that bill
inshallah.
comes in, then the state will completely take over. There'll be no Qisas and Diyat, and they will be punished for it.
Harisa, why do you think that we live in a society where the maternal uncle, like Justice Aiba is saying, or the mother or the father or somebody will come and say that, they forgive somebody who killed their daughter or their sister. That in itself is indicative of a problem in the society.
Yeah.
It is,
It's not,
absolutely.
you know, it's not something, and of course laws will come in.
You see,
but
there
I
are-
keep going back to this. How do we change that in our society? Like she's saying, of course it will take time. But even with time, how do we start?
You see, you change attitudes and then you change behaviors, and that's a long haul. But if there is a support from the state, through the right kind of legislation, pro-people legislation, pro-poor legislation, pro-weak legislation, and state as seen as the custodian of the rights of the most marginalized, weak and vulnerable in the society. The most marginalized, vulnerable and weak will not remain marginalized, vulnerable and weak over some years, because then their rights are protected. So laws are very important. As far as the society is concerned, we have to have a multi-pronged approach. It has to come through education. It has to come through your curriculum. It has to come through public messages that are sent out through different kinds of media. It has to come through role models.
Clerics can also play a huge role.
Clerics can play a major role.
Don't hold your breath on that one.
But what we have seen in Pakistan is that some of the enlightened clerics were also eliminated in this process of violence and terrorism and extremism. So I think everybody can play a role. Everybody has to play a role. But before playing a role, you have to have that consciousness and that understanding, and for that the society needs massive transformation for women and men, because you have to understand that a crime in the name, that this honorable crime in the name of honor is actually not, it may have been executed by one person or a couple of people, but it is a joint crime where the whole community or the society compels or coerces a man to take life of his sister, niece, daughter or wife, because it needs a larger transformation. So unless we start believing in personal liberties, in personal choices, in women being equal, as we, I'm just reiterating, and not just women, again men as well. So it is very complicated, because there are elements of class, there are elements of gender, sexuality.
In a society where people applaud a brother who murders his sister, no matter how much legislation there is,
fringes will always be there.
You
see, fringes will always be there.
To be implemented.
There will always be a lunatic fringe. In any society you find this fringe, but unfortunately we have allowed that lunatic fringe we have allowed it to mainstream itself, and that we have to sort of detox. We need a detox in this society, and that detoxification can happen beginning with legislation. But again, as I said, our public messages, our curriculum, our approach towards dealing with the issue, first we have to appreciate and understand and convince ourselves and convince the powers that be that this is an issue, and then you move accordingly, and it will I mean, societies have seen changes. And as I said earlier, I think it was Engels in his family, state and the origins of private property in his book. He says in its preface in 1899, I believe, at the turn of the 20th century, that the first class subjugation humanity has seen or experienced is of women at the hands of men. So the understanding was there in Europe. Whether you may agree with their economic model or not is a separate thing, in late 19th century. And it took them, even after that, if you look at the suffragettes movement in Britain, it took them 3 more decades to get voting rights in Britain. And 10 more decades from that awakening for women to get voting rights in Switzerland. I mean, when we were electing, when Benazir Bhutto was actually an opposition leader in Pakistan, Swiss women did not have a right to vote. So I think it's an international problem, but
we have, and like you're saying, we had a woman prime minister very early on, and we have a parliament that has guarantees not certain seats for women, and we have very qualified women who have spoken out.
So this all has happened even within these hostilities and women and their allied associated men who actually believe in the shared cause of humanity. Pakistan has achieved a lot in that respect also. But you know, it's a large country, it has loads of problems, so many social pressures, a lot of things which have nothing whatsoever to do with the faith of people. It has to do with these millennium old traditions, you know, where there was stark patriarchy, you know, ruling from household to the state level. So I think there is a lot that needs to be done, but the consciousness has to change first. If you bring change in the consciousness, you will see a social change appearing very soon.
But Justice Saiba, before, like we talked about, even in the West, where they are largely, most people agree, an enlightened society, and where the attitudes are different, and where the education is different, and where you don't have, you know, elders saying that, you know, certain things are all right and certain kinds of violence against women is all right, there is still a lot of violence. And you, like you said, you know, why do we want to look at other people? We should, you know, worry about our own house first, which is right, but why does it happen there then? So it's really a phenomenon that happens across the world.
I ruminate about this quite a bit, and I think it's basically, if you have noticed, there's a rise in intolerance the world over. Okay? Although there are laws over there, people are managing to get away with things a lot. Okay? And then we have the lawyers who are, you know, geniuses, evil geniuses I call them, where they will actually make say, that's not a woman, that's a man, you know, that kind of, they can convince. So I think it's also a matter of your conscience, and if the fences in that society are growing, I feel in our culture, there is segregation, there's too much of it. And it shouldn't be that much. And on the others, they're the exact opposite. There has to be a certain amount of segregation whereby, not segregation is the wrong word, polarization, I would imagine, that women are women. We are the weaker sex physically. Okay? And that is what invites the man who's stronger to show his bronze, so to speak.
Really?
So yeah, I think
is
that.
Is it really about strength?
What happens? Okay, tell me about domestic violence.
No,
what happens?
but even women who are very strong physically are violated. It's not so much just
violated,
about.
Yes, but whatever. Psychologically, it's a proven fact. When you are angry, your strength goes up. Now, there's a man and a wife. Okay, they're both angry. So the level of strength and the adrenaline going through the bodies is definitely more in a man. I mean, if you ask, how does he pick up this? He'll pick it up with one finger and I'll probably drag it. So that is the physical disadvantage that women have.
So it's about the physical disadvantage.
It's physical disadvantage. Whereas in our society, it's not only physical, they think it's not really physical disadvantage, it's mental disadvantage.
Right.
They're meant to be beaten.
No, I understand that. I think, yes, I mean, there are physical differences, of course, but with technology, I mean, human beings actually are able to, they landed on the moon when we were born, or you were not born actually. And so that is, so you know, so humanity has actually progressed in so many ways. And I actually agree with you, MAHRUKH, that now, I mean, women who are physically very strong are also violated, and that's where Justice Saiba is right, that, you know, it's more about, you know, thinking about yourself as weak. You know, that actually is, and that is what oppression does to any woman or man. They break your, your soul. I mean, they break your courage, and you have to accept yourself to be a slave if you have to be a slave. And that is, I think, very important to understand. But I think, you know, for instance, I give you an example about this sensitization and thing. You know, when I was growing up, my aunt, you know, who's passed away, she told me, my khala, that, you know, you're growing up, you're a boy, you'll go after girls. That's natural. But always remember, beta, that eve teasing is not romance. And consider them your friends. You like them, fine, that's natural. When I was a teenager, or, you know, around that time. So I think it is very important, and I remember that. And I'm not perfect.
So it's about educating adolescents, teenagers,
yes,
telling them how to
youth.
behave.
And I think, and I want to say very candidly that, you know, segregation in schools has not helped the situation at all, because neither boys nor girls, neither women nor men develop those social skills to deal with the other gender, because so they have been segregated for so long, except for you know, experiencing those power relationships with their brothers and with their fathers.
So
Right.
They have no understanding of how men behave or how men should behave.
And there is no concept of being friends with with
Likewise.
men or with
Yeah.
women.
Likewise, for men also, I mean, they get very, either they get insecure, paranoid, or there is this enigma of a woman.
Right.
You know, it's mysterious, some mysterious being. I mean, I have seen men who work with me who insist on, educated men, by the way, who would insist on saying that women and men are two different species. Now, you know, language is very important. It's not just semantics. It's you know, it has meaning. I mean, if you consider that women and men in your mind, I mean, if they are two different species, then they will never be equal, because species are different and two species are never equal. One is different from the other, and one is inherently different from the other, so one has to dominate the other species. Like human beings have somehow, through natural processes have come to the top of the food chain.
And men who
so
don't
likewise
have
come
any
to the top of
interaction.
power. Yeah.
And men who don't have any interaction see women as another species.
Absolutely.
So they act and react in a way which is not normal.
And by the way, this is promoted by your clergy.
Right.
This is promoted by your clergy. They perpetuate this concept.
And even so, when later, you know, and a lot of people believe that, you know, when you don't have segregation, like when you have co-education, for example, a lot of people who come out of co-education schools are more equipped. They have the social
Yes.
skills to deal with the men or women. They have the social skills to exist with them, to be friends with them, and to have a normal relationship with them, as opposed to somebody who goes to a girls' school or a boys'
If you look
school
at
and
it,
have
but
a
in
relationship.
But segregated societies are not progressive societies. Okay?
They're not normal societies. Leave alone being progressive.
They are
not normal
too
societies.
clear-cut a demarcation. And as you talk about species, oh, that's the other species, we are the other species. I think the unhealthy societies. I do say that we have to stay within the norms of our culture, but that doesn't mean that I have to be covered from head to toe and not think for myself.
Right.
And co-education, you'll notice that most girls who've been to co-education institutions, they're much more confident, and so are the boys. There's no curiosity about what a woman is.
Right.
In segregated societies, they'll say, oh, what's a woman all about? For him, he has two figures, a mother and a sister, or maybe a daughter later. But apart from those three relationships, he thinks they're bad.
I think childhood and adolescence are
very
important.
very
Those
important.
years
Yeah.
are very important. And none of us, I mean, we all fight, because you see none of us who even are conscious are the perfect men. I mean, there is this streak in all men who are a product of societies like ours, either, you know, to if not discriminate against women, to dominate women, to actually do not let them have their rights realized. It does make an effect on you if your schooling or your upbringing is done differently. I think it is important.
So upbringing is, of course, is really,
Like
really
I said,
important for
education
society.
brings the
But it's
mother
not
is
just
the-
the household.
mother is the one
It's not
who's got
just-
to teach her son this.
It begins with the mother, but it does not stop at the mother.
It doesn't stop
Right.
at
It
that.
has to be the whole community, the society, the education system, media. For instance, I mean, you look at the soap operas on most of the private television channels in Pakistan. I mean, there's a certain kind of a characterization of women
The
that
kind
you
of,
see.
yeah, right.
And that you see, by the way,
the kind of model that comes out is even on our soap operas is either a woman who's beaten, a daughter-in-law who's beaten, or, you know, somebody who's subjugated. And, you know, we don't see a woman. We very often, I mean, it's not a I don't want to make that
I think the
generalization.
PTV
Yeah,
plays-
we are willing to see the women but don't want to hear them.
Right.
That's the
that also,
attitude.
It's
exactly.
a very,
Women should be seen,
very
but we
very
should not
nicely
be heard.
put.
Yeah.
But if you look at, for instance, I give you an example, not because I'm sitting here on Pakistan television, but if you go back and see at how the roles were depicted, roles of women were depicted 30 years ago by Hasina Moeen on Pakistan
Right,
television,
right.
it was far more progressive and advanced. And by the way, Hasina Moeen is a very sort of very religious, and says all her prayers and does all her rituals, and she's not so-called westernized,
Woman.
advanced woman, but she understood that women are equal and women have to fight for their rights in a society
so
which does not.
quality entertainment really has a lot to play in
And
trying
it affected people. I mean, people started naming their daughters and naming their children after those characters in Hasina Moin's plays. Now you don't see that. Now you see, as you were saying very correctly, that now you celebrate a subjugated, crying woman on your television screens.
But hold a minute there. There is something I will condone. I'll definitely condemn, not condemn that, condone it. I'm not a TV fan, but I saw this ad where they're showing this girl going out to play cricket and all that stuff, which has now been banned. Then there's another ad saying daughters are a blessing.
I
think that is the approach we have to have.
That's the approach we need to show.
We need to show that.
That's all the time that we have today.
Don't sort of marginalize them. They are a blessing.
But you know, the thing is that feminists, the real feminists, or the real Marxist feminists, or the real modernists among women and men do not promote obscenity or using women as a commodity either. So this understanding also has to be there.
Thank you so much for joining me. That's all the time that we have today. It's important to have a change in attitudes, and education, like we said, begins at the mother's knee. It's important to have the right attitude. It's important to know how to act with a man or a woman. It's important to know that she's another human being and not another species to be subjugated. All of this will come from education. All of this will come when each one of us wants to make that difference. Yes, we have legislation, but that is not enough. Yes, it will be implemented on, inshallah, but that's not enough. We need the attitude that will accept women, that will celebrate women. Thank you so much for joining me today on Perspective.